Hello there, and welcome back to A Star Wars Story. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe to let YouTube know that the Force is strong with this channel. This is our spoiler-free review of Episode 3 of AHSOKA. This episode was written by Dave Filoni, and it was directed by Steph Green. For those not keeping track, Steph Green has previously directed the second episode in the Book of Boba Fett, and she also directed last week's second episode of AHSOKA. She is continuing the themes and visual trends that Dave Filoni started with the first AHSOKA episode. I talked about this a little bit in our premiere review, which is when Dave Filoni directed that first episode, he clearly set a standard for the other directors. A visual style, a sense of pacing that, at least so far with Steph Green's 2 episodes, are being followed through on. There is a strong sense of consistency across these directors. And I assume that's going to continue. And now, because again, we've only had two directors, 3 episodes, but I get a sense that there really is a standard that everyone's trying to follow Dave Filoni's vision. And I think that's a beautiful thing, and I think it's incredibly professional because his directorial style and his sense of vision aligns, in my opinion, the closest to what George Lucas established with his 6 films and then the work that George Lucas went on to do with the Clone Wars animated series. Now, as we all know, Dave Filoni has previously directed a theatrical release. He directed the animated Clone Wars film, and Dave Filoni directed numerous animated episodes and has directed a handful of live-action episodes. So he understands Star Wars. But more than that, he understands George Lucas's vision and idea of Star Wars. And for me, in my very much so nostalgic opinion, he has gotten the closest. Now, Star Wars can be many different things, and I think that's wonderful, and I think that's absolutely beautiful. Star Wars should be many things because it exists in a galaxy with vastly different genres and characters and identities and professions that it can truly be anything. But when it comes together, when Star Wars is an event, it needs to be the thematic package. It needs to be the episodic package that George Lucas delivered to theaters. Now, that's how I feel. And again, that is completely subjective in terms of visuals, in terms of pacing. What I find comfortable, others will not, and that changes with each generation. So it's not to be expected that it is an overall objective standard. It's just my subjective opinion, which allows AHSOKA, the series, to connect with me more. On top of the fact that we continue to follow characters that have been around for, in some cases, 40 years, in some cases 15 years, in some cases only about 10 years, but they each have their grown-in fan base. All of these projects are someone's first Star Wars, and we always have to keep that in mind. Some kid is being introduced to Star Wars through each one of these projects, and right now with AHSOKA, a whole other generation is being introduced to Star Wars, and I think that's absolutely incredible. Now, when we talk about spoiler-free, what does that mean if you haven't been following along? We're not going to talk about plot developments. We're not going to talk about character debuts. We're not going to talk about character deaths, plot twists. We're going to avoid anything that will ruin the experience or that could potentially harm the experience. We're going to talk about how it's making us feel. Because at the end of the day, how we feel, how we ourselves as individuals feel after watching a show is just as important, right? It is incredibly important, and a lot of that is lost in discussion, how something makes us feel. And with AHSOKA, this feels like the best of the Clone Wars. This feels like the best of what Lucas was doing with Star Wars. There is such a true master to apprentice lineage if you look at Lucas to Filoni, and we've talked about this before, just as if you look at Yoda to Dooku to Qui-Gon to Obi-Wan to Anakin to AHSOKA. There is truly a master and apprentice relationship, and we are seeing that executed beautifully. And to see Steph Green continue with that consistency and that trend that Filoni established is an absolute mark of professionalism, because coming in as different directors, directing at different times, trying to match, trying to keep consistency, that is in itself a tall order, especially when you're working in something that is so visual effects intensive. And to see it carried through is absolutely wonderful. To see how Steph has captured what Filoni has written and to match the tone and the sense and the pacing of what Filoni established and to do all of that in just her 2 episodes is absolutely wonderful. Not only that, but as it is so far, Steph has had some really iconic moments. Filoni gave her a lot of great material to work with. And in episode 3, at least in my opinion, we have witnessed what I believe is the start of the turn, okay? And by that I mean AHSOKA is 8 episodes long, right? So let's say, theoretically, and this is just me speculating, because this is how I feel right now, but let's say that AHSOKA can be split into 2 mini arcs, each one 4 episodes long. And my best comparison to you is back to Season 2 of the Clone Wars, the Geonosis arc. It was a massive arc, but within that arc were very distinct different episodes. I mean, again, you had Geonosis zombies, you had classic war, you had espionage with how Padme, started the arc. It varied significantly within that large arc, and I feel like that's the same thing within AHSOKA. Just my feelings right now, looking at 1, 2, and 3, and especially 2 and 3 because they are incredibly, incredibly connected. Looking at this is how I feel to be the start of the turn. I think episode 4 is going to have a significant change to it, and I think we've seen episode 3 establish the start of that, and I think episode 4 is going to go on and finish that turn, and that's going to get us into the second half, if you will. Looking at it right now, and again, staying as spoiler-free as possible, I keep trying to make check marks of, okay, this was in the trailers, this was in the trailers. We've knocked out almost everything. There's a few key ones that are missing. If you've been following along with the trailers, you'll know what they are. If you're spoiler adverse to trailers as well, then I won't spoil that here. But there are, by my count, and this is at least in terms of what I consider to be key, there are at least 4 significant sequences, and I think episode 4 is going to give us at least one of them, and then we can kind of see how they're holding off on others, and I'm just going to leave that alone. But I keep thinking about that because I keep thinking about the turn, and if it is paced that way, if episode 4 really is the turn, if episode 3 is getting into the turn and episode 4 is the turn, I have a feeling like how I could see it play out, and it's got me very excited. I'm really thrilled to see how this arc culminates. But again, that's just me speculating. That's based off how I'm feeling immediately coming out of episode 3. And on top of that, it's a very different experience because this is an episode we're all getting to watch at the same time. And from here on out, we'll all be watching at the same time. So I'm really excited about that as well. I was really fortunate to attend a fan screening for the first 2 episode premiere of AHSOKA. So I had a few days of waiting, to be able to really talk about the show with a lot of people. And that's not going to be the case here. So I'm really excited to watch and get these discussions up as soon and as quickly as possible because I am just that excited and empowered by AHSOKA. It is pure Star Wars, and Steph Green has delivered a set of incredible episodes, an amazing set of sequences as well. Even this one has just a really, in my opinion, of course, classic Star Wars sequence, and I love seeing it play out. I love seeing these directors get to play in the universe and get to really capture the heart of Star Wars. And I feel that. I have so far felt that across 3 episodes. So again, it's just getting me more and more excited. It's raising my expectations more and more because they are surpassing it. So far, 3 episodes in, they continue to raise that bar. And it's thrilling and it's exciting because this is Star Wars. If you have not tuned in yet, I highly recommend it. This is can't miss television. This is the closest we have come to having classic Star Wars on TV. New weekly content that is such a successor to what George Lucas created, and I'm over the moon by it. I'm overwhelmed by it. Yeah, it's 3 episodes in. It's really, really cool. It is. It's cool. It's a lot of fun too. And now there's still a couple of questions. There's still, there's a couple of plot threads that I know people. I know there are characters people probably want to see sooner, but for me, I'm excited to see it play out. I'm excited to let this arc breathe and to see where they go with it. So I very much so urge you to get started now, because I think episode 4, I think where this arc could end up taking us to it's going to be something you want to watch as it happens. I would not risk spoilers at all. Again, thank you so much for watching. Above all else, and most importantly, stay safe, take care of others, and remember, the Force will be with you always.